So let's shift a little bit to talk about the National Summer Learning Project and how this study was set up to really answer the question of whether large urban school districts can successfully run high quality summer learning programs. And so Catherine, I know that as this was set up for you to really have a study design that could answer that question, school districts had to not only recruit enough students into the summer program, they also had to sort of over-recruit so you could have a comparison sample. So were there challenges associated in general for recruiting young people into the programs, and then particular challenges for sort of the over-recruitment? And what kind of scale goals are we talking about when schools were setting out to set up the summer learning programs?
Great questions. So there were 5 school districts participating in this study, and you can see them listed on a map. If you go to slide 2, there we go. And indeed, all of them did recruit more students than they had served in the past, because as you know, this was a randomized controlled trial. And if you want to just go to slide 3, you can have a visual of how an RCT is set up. There is what we call a treatment group that participates in whatever activity is being evaluated, and then there's what we call a comparison or control group that continues on with business as usual. And so you're right, Karen, the districts had to recruit more students than they had served in the past, but that did not turn out to be challenging. I can say more about this later, but what was challenging was ensuring regular attendance and also ensuring that all of the students who signed up actually showed up, actually came to the programs. But recruiting was not difficult at all. As I mentioned earlier, there's unmet demand for summer programming within communities, and in these 5 communities that was the case. So after the programs advertised and recruited and reached out to families, they got enough interest. That was not part of the challenge.
Good. So once they got their numbers, what then had to happen to get to quality? Because again, the test was, can urban school districts successfully run high quality summer learning programs? So we've just talked about this is more than just remedial courses, but in the overall definition of what the foundation and the cities were looking for in terms of high quality programs, how was that defined, and how did districts go about doing that? And Melanie, you should certainly weigh in on how Pittsburgh did this, but what were you looking for to get to a definition of high quality?
Well, if you'd like to go to slide 5, actually, we scoured the literature and interviewed experts to figure out what people thought and research demonstrated was a high quality program. And you can see the components on this slide. We know more now after having done this study, but back in 2011, when we were designing the study, we wanted to make sure that these programs were of no cost to families, that they ran for a full day, that they ran for at least 5 weeks, that the students were taught in small classes, both in terms of the academics and enrichment, with no more than 15 kids, that the teachers who were teaching the academic content were certified district teachers, and that there was academic content provided for 3 hours out of the day, but that there was also the enrichment activities that I mentioned earlier, and that really ranged depending on the district. There was bike riding and rock climbing and theater and visual arts and all sorts of fun things happening in these programs. They also all provided breakfast, lunch, and a snack, and free transportation. So some of these aspects of the programs, you might think, well, how does free transportation relate to quality? What we learned and what was known prior, but what we really confirmed is that kids have to attend regularly in order to benefit from these programs. So you have to have these components in place in order to get the outcomes you're looking for. So transportation is really key to having a quality program.
That's excellent. And across the cities, and then Melanie, will turn to you to hear a little bit about how it was done in Pittsburgh. You mentioned before community partners. What kind of community partners were recruited to be a part of this, and what roles in particular did they play in the full day activities?
So
great.
Oh, go ahead, Melanie.
Okay, great. So one of the things that I didn't mention before is that I actually have I'm in a very unique position to look at this work, as in the first 2 years that we did Summer Dreamers, I was actually a graduate intern with the program, to now 10 years later be leading this work. So I have a little bit of insight around our initial processes in terms of how we approach this work. And so particularly around community partnerships, what we did is we developed a RFP, or request for proposals, to really ensure that we weren't just kind of hand selecting some things that we knew about, but we were really broadening the reach and the opportunities that we would eventually give our students access to. And so it's a pretty comprehensive document in terms of the things that we're looking for. So not just around the type of activity, but how are you intentionally creating inclusive and least restrictive environments for all students? How are you ensuring that it is engaging, hands-on, really creating what we know are best practices in learning spaces and learning opportunities for students. And so that was kind of the starting point for us. And so, as Catherine mentioned before, there's a variety of things that we've been able to connect our students to, such as kayaking and biking and dancing and theater, and fencing. And so if you name it, we've been able to really create spaces for those opportunities to happen. But we also were intentional in our staffing process. So we do have a camp leadership team that's responsible for the daily operations and really setting the culture and the tone for each campsite. And within that, we made sure we had a specific role that was dedicated to supporting and connecting with our enrichment providers. But beyond that, we also, within our teaching positions, within our teacher roles, we made sure that there was an individual who was certified that was then matched with and paired with our community partners. So what we really tried to do is make sure we had experts in a multitude of areas connecting to really make this work happen. So we know that our teachers understand behavior management practices. We know that our teachers understand pedagogy. And so helping work with community partners who are experts in their own right, who bring their own knowledge and skill set to the work, to really think about how does that translate to working with youth in cases where you may not have had that experience prior. And so this is really kind of ingrained in all that we do. And so our teachers that are with our students in the morning time are also transitioning with them into their afternoon activities to really continue that support and that connection. And we also, for our particular providers, require what we call a connected writing project. So that's the other way that we try to ingrain some more intentional learning strategies that, connect what's happening in the morning to what we do in the afternoon space as well.